The Eagles added some much-needed depth at O-line with a veteran tackle returning to Philly. And according to reports, the Birds have a big role for rookie Kelee Ringo, but not at cornerback. Plus, this one wide receiver hated Philly on his draft visit, but why might Howie Roseman consider signing him? And it looks like we may have a date for the Kelly Green jersey release, but first, let's run it. Hey guys, for those that are new to the channel, I'm Josh and I cover the Birds, and we start with the Eagles having signed veteran free agent tackle Dennis Kelly, a guy who has 54 career starts and most recently played as a swing tackle for the Indianapolis Colts, which if that name sounds familiar, it's because it is. Philly drafted Kelly in the 5th round in 2012 out of Purdue, where he started 10 games out of the 13 total appearances he made. Unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest showing and Kelly failed to play a snap in 2013. The next couple seasons, he played sparingly as a backup, but continued to be extended multiple times, seeming to suggest the Birds valued his ability to slot in as a backup when needed. Yet if you don't recall how Kelly left the Eagles, it was the Dorial Green Beckham trade. That didn't take long to see we were on the losing side of that trade, with the wideout amassing a grand total of 36 receptions for 392 yards and 2 touchdowns. Although I think we've more than robbed Tennessee since then. Fast forward 7 years and Kelly is back. I think this is a great signing to add versatility and depth behind guys like Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. I mean, just take a look at the positions the 6'8", 320-pound tackles played throughout his career, with left tackle and right tackle being the main spots. But the beauty is that this dude can fill in wherever you need him to, and he's only given up 2 sacks over the last 1,500 snaps. Obviously, it's a smaller sample size because he's been coming in and playing sporadically, but this makes perfect sense to me. But what about you guys? What grade would you give this acquisition? I think I'd go with a solid B+, and I really love to see Kelly back in Philly. Another guy who appears to be back in the Philly area is Jalen Hurts, as he was at the Fort Delco gym, apparently, and there were also reports he shot a video, but for the life of me, I haven't found it yet. One video I did come across was Lane Johnson snatching 315, because why not? But if you think that's impressive, just take a look at the All-Pros flexibility doing a back bridge. That's 6'6", 325 pounds, ladies and gentlemen. It hurts me just looking at that. But Pave the Lane is one of a kind, and it's no wonder Madden gave the 33-year-old a 98 rating, only one off the highest rating of 99, which tied for the best tackle on the game with 49ers left tackle Trent Williams, who also received a 98. The only O-lineman higher was Dallas Cowboys guard Zach Martin, who became the first guard named to the Madden 99 club in 21 years. Of course, Dallas fans took to Twitter to make sure we all knew who was first on the list of video game stardom.
How's bragging camp going?
Thankfully, it didn't take long for them to come crashing back down to the reality of the real world after Adam Schefter broke the news that Zach Martin is considering not reporting to training camp due to his unhappiness with his contract and the team's lack of interest in restructuring it. Martin believes he's woefully underpaid relative to the market, especially after the Madden 99 rating now, right? Since Victor Williams was thinking what most of us were, saying Zach saw this Madden drop and said, "Screw this."
Okay, so that's how it's gonna be. Y'all want to play.
All right, I won't lie. Martin is really, really good. Anyway, he's for sure one of the top players at the position, but as Schefter mentioned, Martin is scheduled to make about $7 million less this season than the NFL's top paid guards. And after taking a look at this list, I'd say he definitely has a point. This whole situation gets better though, because he wasn't the only Cowboy asking for more money, with former Dallas wide receiver Dez Bryant saying he spoke to current Cowboys corner Trayvon Diggs, and that Diggs isn't trying to knock the Cowgirls across the head, but the team isn't trying to be fair to him either.
And here we go.
It's funny how so many people said before the offseason that the Eagles wouldn't be able to have this dominant of a roster because all the free agents and the guys that we had to sign and we would lose them all, yet I think it's Dallas that should be worried now. I mean, just take a look at all the free agents they'll have next offseason. 2 starting corners, 3 starting O-linemen, a starting safety, and 3 other rotational players. And that doesn't even include the fact that they still have to restructure Dak Prescott and Zach Martin once this new deal worked out. Gosh, that's just terribly unfortunate. I feel so bad. Thankfully, as long as Howie Roseman is employed, we will never see a situation like this unfold in Philadelphia, since taking care of your best players is the easiest job. Contenders handle contracts in March. Pretenders allow situations like this to unfold. It really is just another day in Dallas, trying to be a contender, which apparently they're trying to contend for New York Jets receiver Denzell Mims, and it may be between Dallas or Philly, although we had our shot at Mims and already passed. If you don't recall, there was speculation around fans and members of the media who believed the Eagles would take Denzell Mims even after already taking Jalen Reagor in 2020. Thankfully, the Birds took Jalen Hurts instead. But now, with the Eagles being very thin at wide receiver after the elite starting unit, Elliott Shore-Parks thinks Howie and Nick might take a chance on this former high draft pick, and that Mims could be worth taking that shot on. I disagree emphatically.
Whoa, I said it with all due respect.
Because let's remember, it was Denzell Mims who took a visit with Philly before he was drafted, calling it a dirty trash city, and also saying the experience he had was scary since it was a lot going on and seeing a lot of people that looked scary. To be fair, he did end up saying if he had spent more time in Philly, he thinks he could eventually have a good time. After all, people change, right? In case you missed it, former Eagles safety CJ Gardner-Johnson apparently now hates Philly fans, saying they're obnoxious. I can't stand the Okay, that wasn't exactly the type of change I was talking about. Back to Mims though, maybe I'm making too big of a deal out of this, yet it's a fair question he'd have to deal with, and one Jimmy Kempski of the Philly Voice would kinda like to see. Maybe not the best first impression on either side, although there's other reasons I'm not necessarily sold on Mims, and for those that don't know, I went to Baylor so watched every game Mims played in, and don't get me wrong, he was dominant as a college receiver and had several big games. Plus, he tested crazy athletic at the NFL Combine before the draft, running a 4.38 with a 38.5-inch vertical and 16 reps on the bench, which is one of the main reasons Mims was slotted to go somewhere in the second round. However, the 25-year-old doesn't have much to show for it, only racking up 42 catches for 676 yards and no touchdowns in his first 3 seasons. Now, unfortunately, he's had Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson throwing to him the majority of his career, so not necessarily putting him in the best spot. Plus, he suffered multiple hamstring injuries, a concussion, and a hip sprain, which have all caused him to miss time. So while I'd say he does have some potential, I don't think I'd want him in Philly. But what about you guys? The main reason I'm against it is from watching him in college and the NFL, he just seems to lack that competitive edge, especially on contested catches. I'd love for him to have a solid NFL career, but personally, I like what Quez or Olamide Zaccheaus bring to the table as wide receiver 3 and even wide receiver 4 options. And let's not forget UDFA options like Jaden Hasselwood, Joseph Ngata, Charleston Rambo, and others on the roster. Anyway, I'm out on Mims, but go ahead and let me know what you guys think in the comments. And how do you feel about Kelee Ringo playing safety? Thankfully, the Eagles signed Kelee to his rookie contract. However, I don't think any of us were truly concerned. It was super cool to see Ringo train with Budda Baker, and yeah, he's a dang big corner, with obviously a massive ability to make an impact from day one, but the more surprising part, according to Joe Castro, is the Eagles have very high hopes for him, and a position switch is something both sides are open to, since neither side wants this to be a redshirt year, so expect Kelee to find a role in this Sean Desai defense. You know, the type of defense the DC referenced back in May.
We want to be able to run, we want to be able to hit, and we want to play smart.
I think there's a ton of potential for Ringo in this defense, who continues to put in the work, most recently working out with Chicago Bears corner Kyler Gordon, who was taken in the second round of the 2022 NFL Draft out of Washington. And although this is just on the field work and not in pads, I'd say Ringo looks much smoother in these reps. Again, the Georgia standout is 6'2", 210 pounds, and moving like that. But I guess it takes us back to the question, do you think Kelee will end up playing safety? Or maybe I should say, do you think he'll start at safety? I can't see it happening because, as I've said before, I think Reed Blankenship is just about as close to a lock as you can get for the starting job. So then you have Terrell Edmonds, rookie Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, Kayvon Wallace, and now, presumably, Kelee Ringo competing for one spot. Or let's say I'm wrong and the ghost isn't a lock, that's still 6 guys battling it out for 2 positions. I think Blankenship and Edmonds are the favorites to start on day one, especially due to Reed already proving it on this team and Edmonds having a ton of actual starting experience. But let's not forget about Sidney Brown, a guy who the Eagles drafted ahead of Kelee Ringo, who Assistant General Manager Alec Hallaby recently said was a favorite of a lot of people in the building because Brown's a fun guy to watch who plays with an extreme effort at an extremely high tempo. He looks like the fastest guy on the field, and at Illinois, they used him a lot down in the box. But we feel like he can match up one-on-one and be a multi-dimensional safety and will be a really good part of the culture. Plus, there's also Justin Evans, like I mentioned earlier, and who Jimmy Kempski reminds, the Birds actually had interest in trading for Evans during training camp last year, but instead ended up dealing for CJ GJ. However, Jimmy believes Evans is a sleeper candidate to impress in camp. That's a fair point. I don't know, I feel like it's the three guys that'll battle it out for the spots of Blankenship, Edmonds, and Brown, but how about y'all? Does Ringo have a chance at safety? The only way I see it is if Desai decides to use a 3-high safety look, and some of the skills that Ringo brings will help in certain looks he's trying to give an offense. But even then, I still don't think he plays much at safety this season. I talked about it more on a previous video because I do think cross-training makes a lot of sense, especially with injuries or in the long term. Depth is never a bad thing, yet right now, I think Ringo is simply going to be asked to soak up as much as he can from Slay and Bradbury and be ready whenever his name is called, most likely at cornerback. Alright, the Kelee green jerseys have been submitted to the league as of a couple weeks ago, according to Jeff Kerr. So when on earth will we get to see them? Well, according to David Melandra, sources are telling him that the Eagles will be releasing the Kelee green jerseys before the Eagles begin training camp on Tuesday. Although then there was this conflicting report from Simone Stanley saying the jerseys are coming August 1st. I don't know who to believe anymore. But for those wondering, the Eagles did reveal the alternate black helmets last year on July 22nd. So maybe this Saturday then. We can hope. This has been the Philly Special.